Good evening. This is Donna Blumquist, librarian at the LaSalle Public Library. Welcome to tonight's virtual program, Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie Bison Project. Before we begin, just a few reminders. On Tuesday, November 15th at 6 p.m. Central Time, the library will virtually host Tricia Menke, Curator of Education at the National Museum of the American Sailor, for a presentation about the culture and traditions of Navy tattoos. Tattoos have been a part of Navy for centuries, and each one tells a detailed story. We hope you will join us for this unusual and fascinating bit of Navy culture. As always, all library programming is free and open to the public. It is also shareable, so please feel free to pass the information on to others. We also want to hear from you tonight. Please post your questions for tonight's program in the chat. And tonight we are welcoming Public Affairs Officer from the Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie, Veronica Hinke, with her presentation that celebrates National Bison Day coming up this week on November 5th. Midewin is a special and unique site, a natural treasure, really. It is only an hour away from LaSalle. With that, we'll let Veronica introduce us to this wonderful place. Veronica, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Wonderful. Thank you, Donna.
We will stop sharing. There you go. There you go.
I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Can everyone see the?
Yes, we can. Your full screen, and we see you as the thumbnail.
Wonderful. Donna, thank you so much for having us here tonight. It has been just wonderful working with you throughout the years, and particularly with regard to the information about bison and the ecological and historical importance of America's national mammal. And for those of you who don't know, the team at the LaSalle Public Library has been engaged in the bison crawl for many years now. And this year, this virtual program and other aspects of their outreach are part of what is happening for National Bison Day, which, as Donna mentioned, is this coming Saturday. So we like to spend the weeks in the lead up to Bison Day, helping people learn more about bison and why we care so much about that. So we're here tonight. I'm going to introduce you to someone very special who began several months ago as the Prairie supervisor at Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie. Wade Spang, who was the Prairie supervisor for many years, retired after more than 40 years with the USDA Forest Service. And we are just very delighted and pleased that Christina Henderson can be with us now as the Prairie supervisor. Before I begin my presentation about the Bison Project at Midewin, Christina is available by phone through the phone line, and she would like to say a few words to you all as well. So I want to introduce Christina to you. Christina Henderson.
Thank you, Veronica, and also thank you to LaSalle Library for hosting us this evening. I am Christina Henderson, as Veronica said. I've been here for about 3 months now. This is my first time living in the Prairie State and also managing a prairie. Before I became the Prairie supervisor, I was a district ranger in Louisiana. So I am mildly looking forward to winter, but I'm steadfastly trying to get ready for it for sure. Bison hold a very special place in my heart. I am, and I hope not a lot of Chicago Bears fans are on, but I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, have been for a really long time. So one of the selling points for me accepting this job and really kind of a feather in my cap was, hey, there's a herd of bison there, right? And they are so very important to the work that we do, restoring the prairie back to its natural state. And I'm really looking forward to celebrating my first Bison Day. And Veronica has put together an awesome slide deck with information about the Bison program on the Midewin. And it is really a privilege that the Bison are here. And I look forward to stewarding this program into the future. And so with that, I thank you all for joining us this evening, and I'm going to mute myself and listen to the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And yeah, we're really excited to tell you about the Bison project. A lot of people, when I first started at Midewin 6 years ago, many people thought that the bison were introduced as a way of connecting people with nature, which was part of it. But the main reason was a conservation project that I'm going to tell you a little bit about as I continue here. So I hope you can take something away from this that you find useful. First of all, if you can write in the chat box, I have a quick quiz or a quick poll here that I wanted to take. And you could write in the chat box if you notice any plants that you recognize in the picture. Do you see any prairie plants that you can name? And if you do, you could write those in the chat box. I think the chat box is visible, right, Donna? Or are people able to see it?
Yes, it is. Yes, they can
Okay.
see it. Don't be shy.
Yeah, don't be shy if you see something that you know in there. And I can't, there's the chat. Okay, let's see. The purple flower, and that's Prairie Blazing Star. Yes, thank you. Above there, Melanie, Blazing Star Liatris. Ah, someone sees Rattlesnake Master. Good job. And big blue prairie grass. Awesome. You guys are an informed group. So good. That's what I wanted to kind of find out a little bit about, you know, what you all know at this point in time about prairie, or a little indication. So Midewin, one of the things that is really interesting about Midewin to people is its size. It is truly massive as far as an open space in the Chicagoland region in northern to central Illinois. In the chat box again, I'm just going to ask one more quick question, if you wouldn't mind sharing in the chat box. How many times the size of Grant Park in Chicago do you think Midewin might be? How many, if it was, you know, a number of Grant Parks the size of it, how many do you think it might be? 10? Kim, good guess. 100? No clue. All right, it is 63 times the size of Grant Park. So it's really significant with people who are looking for open land to get out and explore and experience nature. And they live close enough where you can definitely get out in a day to see the prairie and experience it. And it's just an amazing place. There's over 30 miles of non-motorized trails. Midewin has a significant purpose, a very specialized purpose. It was established in 1996 by the Illinois Land Conservation Act. The legislation identified 4 specific reasons for establishing Midewin. One is recreation, restoration or restoring prairie, native Illinois prairie, agriculture, we're part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Forest Services, and research and education. I'm going to try to advance my slide here and it didn't go, so let's see what happened. There we go. All right. In increments, land where the Joliet Arsenal was active, approximately 50 miles southwest of Chicago, is being transferred from the U.S. Army to the USDA Forest Service. So far, 18,500 acres of land have been transferred. Miles of railroad track, hundreds of World War II bunkers like the one that you see in the slide here, and also administrative and storage buildings that were utilized during the Arsenal days are being cleared to create space where we can help bring back native Illinois prairie plants. Many of the bunkers, like you see here in the photo, will be preserved for historical reference. The reason this is so important is because nearly 200 years ago, Illinois as a state was practically covered with prairie plants. And now less than 0.1% remains. Why does that matter? I'll tell you more about it, but a quick sort of overview is pollinators need natural plants like the ones that you saw in the photo earlier. And the prairie is an ecosystem that can support really important pollinators. The USDA Forest Service estimates that 1 in every 3 bites of food that we take relies on pollinators. So the less availability of food that they have directly affects us. And I want to point something out here before I move on to the next slide. If you look, you can see there are more bunkers than just the one in the forefront here in this line of bunkers where the cows are. And the cows are grazing because there are cattle permittees that are active at Midewin. That's part of the plan as well. And they're helping with prairie restoration too with their grazing. And those bunkers make lines. There were originally about 400 bunkers. So this photo is a really good look at the depth of how those bunkers run through. So less than 1/10 of 1% of prairie remains in Illinois. And what's more, it's scattered. It's not all in one big chunk. It's all over. There are little tiny fragments that are left. However, that's all changing now as prairie restoration projects are underway at places like Midewin. USDA Forest Service volunteers, partners, and employees are working at Midewin with over 275 species of native Illinois prairie plants here, like what you see with this couple that are out harvesting seeds on a National Public Lands Day there in the South Patrol Road Prairie. As I mentioned, it's important for monarchs and other pollinators. And what's more is that prairie plants have surprisingly really long roots, and some of them go 11 feet deep into the ground. And they gather together where they grow in a place like what you see in front of you, like the South Patrol Road Prairie, and they create an absorption mat that all these roots cuddle together to absorb millions of carbons of like sequester the carbon. So it's incredibly helpful to the environment. And also by preserving prairie, we're helping to preserve the legacy of Illinois, which is of course a prairie state. So I mentioned earlier that with their grazing, the cattle are helping preserve the prairie, but also the bison are helping. In 2015, a bison conservation project began at Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie. The bison's project started with 27 bison, 4 bulls, and 23 cows. Volunteers, partners, and staff, like 2 of the young men you see here in this photo, are monitoring to see if the grazing, wallowing, and other natural tendencies that just come naturally to bison is helping to increase and improve habitat for grassland birds that are so important to the environment and to other native Illinois prairie species. And here are a few more photos of the monitoring that goes on. This group of students is out monitoring the lengths of grass to see if the lengths of grass are varying enough to help encourage the return of native Illinois prairie species. And this is a slide of the birds, the bird watching that goes on, and there's bird monitoring every year in June, each year in June, and this group is out looking for birds. The bison have helped with the return of short-eared owls. We hope to start seeing them again in droves in the colder months. They tend to come out around dusk. And if you're looking for short-eared owls, they tend to come out at about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon along the Henslow Trail, right where it meets the Group 63 trail on the east side of Highway 53. And they're also helping with grass and forb diversity. They help prevent shrub encroachment, and they promote habitat for small animals and mammals. And some of those are attractive to native species like the short-eared owls that like the voles on the ground. And the bison are also helping to provide undisturbed patches for foraging owls to catch their prey. We're seeing more and more birds like the bobolink, Henslow sparrows. And this is a picture of the short-eared owls and also the northern harriers. They tend to fight it out in the sky above where the bison graze to fight over food on the ground. Now, again, just want to make sure I'm clear and you all know that this might not be happening right now. This is limited to just a few months in the coldest months of the year. We tend to start seeing the short-eared owls. A couple of things I wanted to share with you about the short-eared owls. They are one of the only ground nesting owls in North America. So they don't have their nest up in the tree, they have their nest on the ground. They eat only meat, which is one of the reasons they like the bison pasture, because the bison and their waste and excrement attracts some of the voles and mice on the ground, and they're attracted to the voles and mice as a food source. To identify a short-eared owl, look for a wingspan of about 35 to 40 inches. Isn't that a gorgeous photo by Ken Murphy, one of the amazing photographers who comes out to photograph owls from time to time? And we're fortunate that he shares photos with us. Their length is 15 inches. The heavily streaked wings and their body, you see the streaking there, and white tan colored underwings, and body with dark striping and dark colored bars on their wings. There's a really nice photo, one of my favorites, by Mark Carosa. And I love to share this photo because it highlights the yellow eyes that are indicative of short-eared owls. So look for those. Look for round, cream-colored facial discs with those dark eye patches and yellow eyes. So in 2021, the bison experiment was initiated at Midewin in partnership with the USDA Forest Service Northern Research Station and the University of Missouri. These institutions came together and this agency came together to really start to take a look at how the bison might be making a difference. 6 bison, 4 cows, and 2 bulls were global positioning system devices, or GPS collars, to help researchers know where they are in locations of different treatment areas. Different patches of land are treated with either prescribed burning or with different types of mowing, and each area is examined and monitored based on what they're seeing the bison do in those areas. And some are also treated with herbicide and some are not. Obviously, the ones that are treated with herbicide are not the area where the bison graze, but later on down the road, those areas will be where bison will graze. So the collars that they wear help not only to show the tracking day to day, over time, they will show what the bison like and how they spend their time. The bison that wear the collars were randomly chosen. More cows were chosen than bulls because during calving season, bulls separate themselves from the herd. So there was a really concerted effort to tag more of the cows than the bulls. The collars will be used in conjunction with cameras to help show through tracking and photos where the bison spend their time as the experiment continues through its phases. As the experiment goes on with the different treatments, the plant communities should show some change as well. With these changes in the plant communities, we'll be able to see what the bison prefer in terms of which forbs they tend to gravitate towards and what they like to eat and so forth, as well as the changes the bison are making to the communities. Within a few years after the herd arrived at Midewin, the number of bison grew to a size that allowed opportunity for some of them to be transferred to federally recognized tribes, educational institutions, and other of our government partners. The Forest Service is coordinating with these organizations to try to help them meet their goals in restoration and educating the public involving bison. Now, I wanted to share this really special slide, and many of you being out probably in the LaSalle area probably recognize this slide right away. This is a story about hope. There have been many positive outcomes. One especially heartwarming story is about hope. A bison that was transferred to Buffalo Rock State Park in Illinois in November 2019, long before most of us experienced COVID, gave birth to a calf in April 2020. Now, remember what we were going through in April 2020 and the challenging times that we all faced as communities all faced together. The calf was born at one of the most challenging times in history for us and during the first weeks of the global pandemic. So residents of the community made the inspiring choice to name her Hope. And there's a picture of Hope. Now, in 2016, the National Bison Legacy Act established bison as America's national mammal. It was really exciting. And we don't just celebrate National Bison Day because it's a fun thing to do. It's actually legislated by Congress. In 2013, US Senate passed the legislation that designated the first Saturday in November each year as National Bison Day. And that's this coming Saturday this year. So National Bison Day is celebrated at Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie with an interpretive bison crawl. And as I might have mentioned earlier, the LaSalle Public Library is very much involved each year in showing interpretive displays, books and film showcases in the library each year to show all the different resources that are available to learn about bison. The bison crawl spans from Illinois to across the Great Plains and up into Canada even. We've really grown over the years. We started, I think it was 5 years ago this fall. It includes a very special webinar program that features virtual visits to places like what you see in front of me. Let's go back to the chat box again. Can anybody tell me if they can write in the chat box what this is or what this was used for many years ago, hundreds of years ago? Okay, this is one of the remaining and very preserved buffalo jumps that were so important to the survival of people hundreds of years ago. It was absolutely necessary. It was during a time when every single part of a bison was utilized for either clothing, meat, blood, so forth. And so these buffalo jumps were strategically positioned in places where people knew that they would be able to utilize them to harvest their food for the coming year or even multiple years. And this is one of the places we visit on the virtual bison expedition, which is coming up this Saturday. This is Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump in Canada. It is a World UNESCO Heritage Site. And we will also be visiting, I don't know if my slide's not advancing there, but it might advance here yet. I think my internet might be slow. So we'll also be visiting the First Peoples Buffalo Jump in Ulm, Montana, and we'll visit the American Prairie Discovery Center. Many of you might have seen American Prairie on 60 Minutes last week. We're going to go there, and we're going to visit the Lewis and Clark Visitor Center, which is a USDA Forest Service site in Montana. And last but not least, we're going to visit hopefully we'll get to see the bison herd at Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie. We're going to have people out on the trails to look for the bison and tap into the webinar and report out whether or not they're seeing bison out there. The bison roam approximately 1,000 acres. So when you go out to visit, you might not see them because they have a lot of area to roam. But we always encourage people to find something positive while they're looking for the bison, learning something new about nature or something else. So we host this virtual program every year with the Forest Preserve District of Will County. And this year, the webinar is Saturday from 11 to noon. And we're also going to share a digital map with everyone. It's on our website of all the different places like the LaSalle Public Library where you can go to learn more about bison around National Bison Day. All that is on our website. Out here. Now my slide, it's funny how my slide didn't advance and now it is advancing. So wanted to tell you a little bit about the USDA Forest Service and bison in general. So outside of Midewin, an estimated 30 to 60 million bison roamed North America before the mid 1800s. And their imprints on the land can still be seen. That's why I have this map up here, because one of the fading signs of roaming bison is on the Hoosier National Forest in Indiana. If you can take a minute and write in the chat box, if you've visited, have you ever visited the Hoosier National Forest in Indiana? This is where this Buffalo Trace route is. And Buffalo Trace, as it's commonly called, is also known as the Vincenzi Trace. And it was created by the countless thousands of bison that once migrated over the route. So there's something new for some of you for your bucket list to check that out. And another really neat place, and I'm sorry, my slide won't advance again, but the USDA Forest Service Hudson Mang Education and Research Center in Nebraska contains one of the most important paleoarchaeological discoveries in North America. Visitors there can tour the bone bed enclosure and the mysterious past of the bison that live there, according to their website. The bone bed is approximately the size of an entire football field. See if I can get that slide to advance. Not yet. Okay. So the Forest Service really truly honors bison as a native species that supports economical, ecological, and historical interpretive objectives. There are Forest Service programs for bison grazing throughout the permitting system of the USDA Forest Service. 8 permittees nationally, this is not just at Midewin, but across the United States, graze a combined total of 2,400 bison. That was as of last year when our Washington office staff put these figures together for National Bison Day in 2021. The permitted grazing program is active in 7 national forests and grasslands in 5 states: Colorado, Montana, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Wyoming. And my slide just will not advance there, so I'll just continue on here with the messages and not the visuals, unfortunately. Bison are the largest land mammal in North America. Males, or bulls as they're called, weigh up to 2,000 pounds and measure up to 6.5 feet at the shoulder. That's huge. Females, or cows as they're called, weigh up to 1,200 pounds and they stand as tall as 5.5 feet at the shoulder. A bison horn can reach 20 inches long and they can be larger in diameter than a cow's horn. Bison have an incisor-like canine tooth on their lower jaw and no upper incisors, allowing them to gather 15 to 30 pounds of food per day. Bison hair is denser than cattle hair, which provides great insulation against extreme conditions. Bison don't begin to feel chilly until temperatures drop below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Bison are extremely agile. They can jump up to 6 feet high. Isn't that amazing? I always find that very amazing. And they can run as fast as 35 miles per hour. And they can also climb steep hills. Mature bison bulls at 3 years and older usually stay by themselves or form small groups, while calves, and immature bulls form groups of 20 to 100 during fall through spring and can congregate in even larger groups during the summer breeding season. Bison tend to move frequently. Typically, they travel 2 to 5 miles per day, but occasionally they'll move up to 20 miles.
Veronica, excuse me, this is Donna. Did you want to, I don't want to keep you without your slides. Did you want to stop sharing your screen and then try to restart it? Or did you want to just go on?
Well, I actually completed the slideshow and I can take questions now.
Okay, well, that's even better. Let's check the chat. I don't know that I think I saw everyone listening and not writing. So, you know, I want, while we're waiting for folks to place something in the chat, I wanted to just comment that Midewin, with all of its history and the restoration, and which is so timely in today's climate and focus on earth and reclamation, is really an American place, much like a national park. And I think of this as such a treasure for those of us who are here in central and northern Illinois, but I also think of it as a treasure for people across the country to want to see this special place that has so much history, both natural and man-made, and is now in the restoration stage. Maybe you could speak to that a bit?
Well, it definitely, and we did just get a question about the number of bison currently at Midewin. Would you want me to address that first, or?
Yeah, go ahead. Please answer the chat.
Okay. There are, it's hard to say. I don't know right now at this moment how many there are, because, you know, there could be close to 100. They really travel all over. As we mentioned in the slides, as I mentioned in the slides, they travel, you know, miles throughout the day. So as far as a hard number, I would not want to even venture to guess at this point in time. And that's one of our most popular questions that we receive. We receive that question very often, and it's hard to know. At peak, I know that there have been at close to 100 at some times. Someone wrote, Mary wrote, I missed the facts about how far buffalo can travel. Let me, 2 to 5 miles per day. Wanted to double check and make sure I had that accurately there. And they'll move up to 20 miles. So 2 to 5 miles a day, but overall they could keep going for 20 miles and then circle back around again. What is the origin of your herd? Okay, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that, Sally, because the 4 bulls that came from Yellowstone. And the cows that came from various locations. How often do cows have calves? Yearly or less frequently? How long do the calves stay with their mother? Very great question. So people find this interesting. Bison have the same gestation period as humans, 9 months, and breeding begins typically in the fall. They call it the rut when the cows and bulls breed, and that's what's standard. There's always, you know, an occasional instance where it's outside of that. But then in the spring, you see what you see behind me right here, this beautiful calf and its mother, and they stay pretty close by. You probably see the difference in color of the calves. They're orange or red.
We're losing your volume, Veronica.
Yeah,
Sorry.
when I lean away from the screen to show the bison, I don't think you can hear me, but out west, they call them the red cows. The red dogs, the red dogs, referring to their rust brown appearance. So I wanted to point that out, and they stay with their mother for, you know, as long as they can. They, even beyond a year, they stay with the herd if they're a cow. But if they're a bull, they're going to, you know, follow the same natural tendencies that all bulls follow of the male bison of going up in their own, going off on their own or with a couple of other bulls. And so in the first several months, it's pretty neat to see those babies stick very close to their mother. And people come out to see that. We try to celebrate that every May. The first Saturday in May is the Route 66 festival each year, and we have what we call, for our portion of the program, we call it Spring into the Prairie. And it is the special spring ephemerals are out, all the different blooms of spring. And also we hope to see some bison calves. So look for that for the first weekend in May each year. Let's see. I often hear that the breeding of buffalo for meat is also helping with the preservation of the species. Is there any truth to this? Michael asked that question, and Michael, I can't speak to that. And it's interesting that you bring that up. Just on my own personal, out of my own personal interest, I'll look into that later tonight. Helen asked, have any of the original herd passed away, and why, if known? Also, you mentioned some bison were transferred out of Midewin, but is there a need to bring others in to spice up the bloodline, or was the size of the original herd sufficient? So the answer to both of those questions is yes. The original bloodline that came in has been sufficient. Haven't been. Well, let me put it this way: there have been new bison brought in. It's something that I can't speak to because I didn't know about that. So I don't believe there have been bison brought in, and I think I would have known. So I might be mistaken, but I don't recall for sure, and I don't think there have been. And yes, there have been natural, of course, after 6 years, there have been times when bison passed away. Why? Just, the natural causes. What is the lifespan of a bison? Sally, I am going to have to get back to you on that because I want to give you a really accurate answer, and I need to look into that. Let's see. Is any of the herd culled for food meat? Is there any connection with herds used for selling meat, like at farmers? That's Elizabeth asked about whether any of these bison are utilized as a meat source, and they're not. No, that's not part of the plan at all. This herd is specifically for the purpose of studying a natural landscape to include natural species like bison and how they interact with the landscape. So we're very careful about that. What is the origin? Okay, let's see. I think a little further, there's a question I might have missed up here. Okay. I saw, here, Sally mentioned, I saw a painting of this at the Museum of the West. I wasn't sure if it really was done. Oh, that's neat. I think Sally's referring to the buffalo jump there. Okay, let's see, any more questions? Oh, thank you. From Pamela, average lifespan of a bison is 10 to 20 years, and they can live up to 20 years. And that's kind of what I thought, but I didn't want to say that until I confirmed it. Are there any other questions, or should we address what Donna was asking about?
I do have another specific question that I missed your answer on earlier, Veronica, and that was, I think it's when I lost your audio for just a second. Did you say what the gestation period of a cow is with the baby?
9 months.
9 months, okay.
Just
Well,
like
many of us understand that.
Yeah, yes. And I'm glad you mentioned that. You couldn't hear me because I think that's such a cool thing that people don't know about. And I think that helps us maybe feel a little bit more connected to bison. And the fact that they're mammals, not animals. There's just a lot of different reasons why we should feel connected to them. They're a really amazing species.
Yes, they are.
And then you'd asked me to talk a little bit about the environment.
Yes, yes, because it's such a unique place and it has such history, and it's even more relevant now because of its restoration and because of this incredible bison herd. And I just think, it's something everyone needs to know about it, not just those of us in Illinois.
Yes. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I love that we connect with the folks out west, and we can, for the National Bison Day programming, and we can reach people as far as Florida or Texas and share this information. Elizabeth asked, is there a difference between bison and buffalo? And there is, buffalo are from a breed that is from Africa, bison from Asia. And that's the main difference. So it's easy to interchange them. The mammals that are at Midewin are bison, and it's very hard to tell them apart. Kim asked, what are some of the hidden gems of the prairie, bison related or not? Oh, Kim, thank you for asking that question. There are so many wonderful hidden gems. One of them is in the first few weeks of September, we see a huge amount of monarchs that stop and rest in the trees on their way to Mexico. If it wasn't Bison Day, I'd have a picture of the monarchs behind me, because the monarchs are incredible. There are literally thousands, millions of them that roost along the Henslow Trail for those few weeks, and they just take a little break on their way down to California and Mexico, down to Capistrano, as most of you know where they go. And that's pretty significant. There's also, it's an area that is not currently open to the public because for one thing, it's very remote. It's very, rough terrain to get there. But can you believe there are cactus growing on the prairie? There's prickly pear cactus, and it is, I never knew that before I started working at Midewin, that there's cactus there. So you can't necessarily go out there to see it, but it's really neat to be there at Midewin where things like that are growing. It's neat to be able to go inside a bunker. One of the World War II bunkers is open at the new site where we have a rededicated arsenal worker statue that we rededicated on Labor Day this past year. And it's neat to go in there and test out your echo, and just kind of experience that. Great World War II history. I mentioned the owls and the northern harriers in the winter, and one of my favorite times is in the spring when we start to see the bluebells. We have carpets of bluebells throughout the wooded areas, and the spring beauties and all the different ephemerals that come up. And then in the summertime, there are so many amazing areas where you can see, like that photo that I first started with, where it's just a kaleidoscope of amazing colors. And sometimes I like to go out and take a 1-minute video of a monarch pollinating. And I'll tell you, when I put something like that up on Facebook as a video, it receives so much interest, more than any other type of post. People just love to get that feel for the prairie. In the fall, we're kind of closing in on the end of the season here, but it is just, the prairie is just bursting with golds and purples from New England asters, and there are 7 types of different goldenrods that are very popular there, that grow a lot. There's everything from showy goldenrod to Riddle's goldenrod, and so forth, and everything in between. So the fall colors are amazing. We just produced a video for the Joliet Arsenal Development Association, and it's going to be great. It'll be out in the spring. We filmed right at the peak of fall colors, and it showed how beautiful amber grasses, those tall grasses in October take on this amazing amber hue, and it just blankets the prairie. So it's really beautiful. Um, so those are some of the really hidden gems. And I just love it when I see a robin or a red-winged blackbird flutter in front of the car as I'm driving into work. It's just an amazing, there's always something amazing to see. Um, Sally asked, and would that cactus be a naturally occurring plant in the prairie? On this prairie, it is, and the land where we are originally was prairie, and the cactus that's coming up is also prairie. In the prairie, there's also a little bit of cactus near the Iron Bridge trailhead. Not as much as what I was talking about on the west side, that it's not open to the public and it's very hard to get to, but sometimes I'll see it poking through. And that reminds me too, there's also something really special at Midewin that you might not think of, but we have been very fortunate to have strong ties with some of the families that farmed the land before it became an arsenal. One of the families is the Schumacher family. We have their family recipes on our website, and we have a tour of where their farm was. So you can take a hiking tour through the area where that's where I've seen a little bit of cactus. Sally, let's see. Rededicated on Memorial Day. Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't Labor Day. So I appreciate you correcting that. We rededicated the statue on Memorial Day. I think of Labor Day because I was thinking it'd be so great to do this on Labor Day. So any more questions?
Well, you commented on the beautiful photography, and it certainly is. Did I think at one time you had photo classes that were run by veterans? Isn't there a program?
Great memory, Jenna. Thank you for bringing that up. And it's such an amazing program. We have a photography program that is led by, and participants are U.S. military veterans and family members. One of the instructors is a U.S. Navy veteran, Greg Boyes, who's also the vice president of the Will County Audubon Society. And we were just out with him. Christina and I were on National Public Lands Day, which was September 25th. And he took people around through the Prairie Creek Woods on 2 different tours. And those photos that we took that day are going to be on display in River Woods, Illinois, which I know is really out of our area. It's about 2 hours north. It's up kind of north of O'Hare, at Brushwood Center at Ryerson Woods. Brushwood Center introduced a program to us a few years ago called the At Ease Nature Platoon. Isn't that a great name for a nature photography program for military veterans? And the whole purpose is to engage veterans in out in nature through the lens, through their camera lens, to connect with nature by taking photographs. And I myself have really experienced the impact of that, and it's been so fun to experience the prairie through the lens of a camera. And we put together a date planner each year, and it's right now our date planner is at the printer for 2023, and those will go to the local veterans administration centers, and they're available by request. So if you would like a calendar, please let me know, and then I'd love to get you one. And it's a great program. It's not just open to U.S. military veterans. If you are a sister or a brother, any type of family member at all of a U.S. military veteran, you can participate in the program, and we have a lot of people who do. So it's really neat to see young people come out who are the grandchildren of World War II veterans. One of the photos in the exhibition at Brushwood Center that starts on November 13th is a daughter of a World War II veteran with 2 Purple Hearts. She took a picture of a dragonfly with the sunlight shimmering on it, and it's just beautiful. So that'll be in the date planner and also in the exhibition. So thanks, Donna, for asking about that. Okay, well, we have 10 minutes left. Is there anything else that I can cover in the remaining 10 minutes, Bison related or otherwise?
I see someone made a comment about teaching us how to say Midewin.
Yes, that is something that people are challenged. Many people are challenged with, how do you say Midewin? Some people say Midewin or Midewin, and Midewin.
Where does the name come from?
Well, it was chosen by some of the early coordinators, the earlier organizers, the community organizers that started planning for what the land would turn into after the arsenal. And it was intended to be a reference to a Native American healing society. And that word that represented a Native American healing society is Midewin. So I think that's pretty clever.
Very appropriate.
Healing the land. Yeah, Michael writes, I have to go. However, I wanted to thank you for a very informative overview of this important space. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for being here. And I really want to thank all of you for being here. In the remaining moments that we have, I want to provide a little bit of time to Christina if there's anything that she would like to say to conclude this program. Christina, are you able to unmute yourself, or is there anything that you'd like to share?
We
Thank
may
you.
have lost her. We may have lost her connection.
Yeah.
Um,
How do we contact you? Let me write my contact information in the chat box. I'm veronica.hinkie@usda.gov. And I would love to hear from you.
and
Yes,
we will also put your contact information when we post the recording tomorrow, if that's okay.
that's wonderful. And Pam writes, thank you for the program. I always learn something new, and I echo that. These programs are terrific. I always learn something new from the LaSalle Public Library programs. Anything else? I just want to encourage you all to check out the Bison Crawl map. It's on our website, and just Google Midewin and the website will pop up, because our URL is really lengthy. So I won't even put that in the, let me see if I can put it in the chat box. That might help. Check that out, because there might be some places that are closer to you than you would think, where you can go and do something really neat. I know that Christina is going to be in person at the Pullman National Monument in Chicago. And I think that's on November 19th. She'll be at Brushwood Center. Well, I'm not sure. One of us will be at Brushwood Center for the reception on the 13th of November. And then there are just a whole bunch of things happening. So I encourage you to check out the map. And why? Because we really want this to be a whole community project. We want everybody to be a part of this. So find some way you can plug in.
We will post the link to the map also with the recording, Veronica. And just to clarify one more time, because again, I was having a little trouble with my sound. Your program for Bison Day is virtual visits to these sites in other states. But is it virtual like we're talking now virtual, or do we come to Midewin and watch it virtually there and then tour Midewin looking for the herd?
It's actually virtual, or you can come in person. And Christina and I will be out on the trail at 11 a.m.
Okay,
at where the Bison overlook is located on the Henslow Trail, or there's a link on our website to where you can register for the webinar. And it's just like this Zoom webinar
okay.
where you register first and you'll get the link.
Excellent. So this is lots of possibilities for people who are close and not so close.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for all of this, and thank you to Christina. And we'll see her next time we do this. In the meantime, I'd like to thank our audience for attending, and I'm sure they've enjoyed the program. Please complete the short pop-up survey that will appear when we close our Zoom connection. And now, Veronica, I'll turn it back over to you for closing comments.
Well, just thank you all so much. I've got a little tickle in my throat, so I'm going to take a quick drink here. Sorry, I got a little feather in my throat. Sandy wrote, thank you. So appreciate these programs for reinstating Prairie and Bison. So sad we let them reduce in numbers. And I have to echo that. I thank you so much, Donna, for making this program possible. And it wouldn't be possible without all of you who tuned in and those of you that will be watching the recording. So just thank you so much.
Well, we hope we all see you soon, either this weekend or some other time during the year, because it's always a good time to come to Midewin.
Yeah.
Again, thank you, Veronica, and thank you to our audience. Until next time then, good night.